Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about some women in horror and I am so excited for it. So I don't know if you know, but just in case you don't, February is Women in Horror Month. For the month of February, I am planning on reading predominantly women in horror. I do have some review books that I have to sneak in there, but if it's not for review, I plan on reading everything by women authors in the horror genre. I have quite a stack to read for February, but I thought I would share with you just a few of the books that I have read so far. This could possibly help you out to incorporate some of these books into your February TBR, so let's jump in. I gotta start off with one of my favorite authors. I first read one of my favorite books by her a couple years back. That's how I started my year. It was my first read for 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 2017, yeah, 2018, and I just fell in love with her writing immediately. I have since read two more of her works, but I have a couple of her books also on my TBR, and that is Gwendolyn Kiste. The first one being The Rust Maidens. This is one of my favorite books. It's a 5-star read, obviously. It just gave me all the feels, and I consistently think about this book. Her writing is just beautiful. It flows along so easily. She really knows how to tell a story and make you feel all the emotions within the story, within the characters, and all the emotions within the atmosphere of the story. It was just incredible. Here we are following a group of girls that are coming upon a change in their bodies. They're growing things, and it's kind of weird. And throughout reading this, the content is so bizarre with this body horror that it's so bizarre that you're wondering, like, what in the world? And sometimes it's hard to picture, but thanks to this beautiful cover. And basically Phoebe, which is one of the girls that are overcoming this change, or that are coming upon this change, she's one of their cousins, and it's just her story talking about her relationship with her cousin and how this change is pulling them apart. It was just so incredible. I highly recommend this. I wanted to start off this video with a bang, with one of my favorites, because if you get anything out of this video, I mean, you should read all of these, but if you get anything out of this video, is read The Rust Maidens. I don't think you would be disappointed. It's kind of a weird book. It leaves you a little bit confused at the end, but it gives me all the feels. And the second one of her books that I want to talk about is The Invention of Ghosts. So this book was printed through Nightscape Press, and it's a little chat book, and it was for a certain charity. She chose an aviary as a charity. I don't know if you could still find this. If not, I'm so sorry that I'm like recommending it. I should have checked before, but if you can find it, I highly recommend it. And this again has overlying factors of friendship, just like this one. She's really big on writing about friendships and relationships, which is what I find so amazing from her, because again, she could just make you feel these relationships, or lack of, or dwindling of relationships. She does it so well. Gwendolyn Kiste, highly recommend. The next two I want to talk about are part of the Splatter Western series from Death's Head Press. I know I talk about this series a lot, but I just couldn't do this video without adding these two authors, because number one, they are the only two women authors within this series as of right now. They're still writing, and they're still coming up with a bunch of other books within the series. I think the series is going to be 12 books. I could be wrong, it could be more, but I know as of right now, off the top of my head, it's 12 books, and so far they've only had 2 women authors, and these 2 books have been phenomenal, so I just couldn't not include them here. The first one is The Night Silver River Run Red by Christine Morgan. This was the first in the series that was written by a woman author. I was a little bit skeptical just because this was the 4th book in the series, and so far I had really liked all 3 books, and I'm like, you know, what are the chances that it's going to continue? But Christine Morgan did not disappoint, and she really surprised me. We are following a group of kids, and there's a traveling circus that has just come to their town, where there's like weird things and displays, and these kids want to go, but they know that their religious parents will not let them go. So they decide to sneak out one night and go to this traveling circus. But along the way, there are some bad men that are coming from another part. They just so happen to be coming in at the same time as a traveling circus. And needless to say, these group of kids run into these really, really bad men. So it's just them battling the bad men, trying to make it to this weird, odd circus, traveling circus, and then their parents finding out that they have run away and trying to find them. It was a grand old time. The characters I really enjoyed, and though I feel like this is a more plot-driven book, you still get a sense of the characters. It flows really easily, and I just absolutely loved it. And the second one is Red Station by Kenzie Jennings. I just finished this book a couple days ago, and wow, I feel like I have loved each book. I think there's been 2 books within the series that I really didn't like. One I honestly DNF'd, and the second one I gave 3 stars to, and although I did enjoy it, there were some problematic things within the story. But out of all of them, besides those 2, I've loved all of them. But when I got to Red Station, I had a little bit of a nostalgic feeling with the magpie coffins, because although they're completely different, I felt the same way about Red Station while I was reading it that I did the magpie coffin. And I think that's a very common thing, because I was talking within the chat with a group of people, and Sadie, which also obviously read these books, she's the co-owner of Nightworms, she was saying how Red Station and the Magpie Coffin are both tied for first place. So that's how good Red Station is. It's just this slashery novel that is so delicious, and it almost gave me, it's giving me like vibes from a movie, but I can't really think about it right now. I don't know which one it is, and I've been thinking about it. I can't put my finger on it. But basically here we're following 4 travelers, and they're each on their way to somewhere different, but they have to stop at the Red Station, which is their stop where they're gonna rest, they're gonna eat, and then they're gonna wake up the next day and continue on their travels. Out of these 4 characters, a set of them are married and she's pregnant, and then we have another woman and another doctor, and they're just on their way. Well, when they get there, it's this family, and they're just so weirded out because it's such a nice place, and they're like, why is this nice place? You know, like something's just off, but they just can't put their fingers on it. And lo and behold, things happen that night, and it is just gore and bloodfest, and I loved it. I was cheering for our main protagonist. I was like, yes, yes, she was a very strong female character, and I just love this one. If you haven't checked either one of these out and gore does not bother you, I would highly recommend it. If you don't like gore in your books, then I would steer clear of these because they are pretty gruesome. Another one that I read last year thanks to Nightworms, it was a Nightworms book party. The Death's Head Press Splatter Western series are also Nightworms book parties. But another one that I had the opportunity to read that I probably wouldn't have read had it not been for the Nightworms is The Fourth Whore by Evie Knight. I love this. This was so different and so unique, which is the same thing as different. Here we are following Kenzie, and she is with her brother one day. They're going out to the store. She's really young, and they're about to cross the street, and her brother gets hit and killed in a hit and run. But at the same time that this is going on, Kenzie is sort of looking off to the side because she sees this man, and he's the scribble man, and he ends up giving her a lucky rabbit's foot, like one of those little rabbit foot things, and gives it to her, and she's had it ever since she's a little girl. It's like her lucky thing, her comfort. But when she turns 16, she unleashes something from this rabbit's foot, which is Lilith. Lilith is out for revenge, and she's out for revenge against God. And the Scribble Man is actually the angel of death, and it's just a story of all these characters coming together. Being that, you know, Lilith wants revenge on God, and we have the angel of death. There are religious undertones to this, but it's so well done, and there's such a twist to it that I couldn't get enough. Highly recommend The Fourth Whore. What a title, right? The Fourth Whore. I love it. I didn't know what to expect going into it because, again, I don't read synopsis. So going into that one, I was like, what am I getting myself into with this title? But Next, I want to talk about Beverly Lee and the Making of Gabriel Davenport, One Night, One Secret. This book is actually part of a trilogy, but I have only read this first book and I loved it. Here we are following a couple. There's this really big snowstorm about to hit them, and the husband, has to go away to the city for a little bit because he has to do some work. So he's trying to time everything to make it back on time before the storm hits. They have a newborn baby. They have just bought this cute little cottage. And so she doesn't want him to go, but what can she do, right? He has to go to work. Needless to say, he doesn't make it back before the storm. But what's happening in the house is very dark. There is this dark evil spirit that is unleashed from this little box that was in the home, and everything goes from there. This follows that timeline, and then it follows years later as Gabriel, which is the newborn baby that we see at the beginning, is grown up. He has to come to terms with what happened many years ago along the way as something is following him. So I love this. I read this a couple years ago and really enjoyed it. I really want to read book 2 and 3. I have a hard time keeping up with series. If I don't pick them up right away, it sort of time flies by. But I really do want to continue the second and third book. But if you haven't read this, it reads very easy and it's just such a fun story.
I like when I say fun story with horror and people look at me weird.
Next, I have Bottled by Stephanie Ellis. Now, while this, out of all the books that I have read or have recommended, this has the lowest rating, I still feel like it's a good read atmospheric-wise. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. Here we are following Tyler as he inherits this home from his grandfather. All you know is that when he was a little kid, he spent hours and hours there with his grandfather. His grandfather used to create these bottles with like these worlds in it, and he would spend hours just living in these bottles, let's say. But there was something else cynical in the house. But either way, in order to obtain his inheritance, he has to stay there. I read this a couple years ago, or like last year, so I'm very like flimsy on the details, but I believe he has to stay there for a certain amount of time in order to inherit it, or he has to stay there for a certain amount of time before he can decide if he's going to sell it or he's going to keep it. Of course, it's a horror novel, so things happen, but this book is very atmospheric. It's a very slow burn, so if you're more of a fast-paced reader, I don't think this would be the right book for you. The only thing, and why I gave it 3.5 stars, is because I really didn't connect with the characters, but I really did enjoy the story overall, so I wanted to include it here because if atmosphere is your thing, then this book is for you. Another book and author that I want to talk about is Brianna Morgan, and the specific book is The Trick-or-Treater and Other Stories, but she has many books and I want to read more. I'm actually going to read Unboxed, which is a screenplay, but from this first book that I read of hers, I fell in love with her writing. I didn't know what to expect when I was going into the book, but I definitely was not expecting that beautiful, easy flowing writing that she has. In The Trick-or-Treater and Other Stories, we have I think 5 or 6 stories. I'm sorry, off the top of my head I can't remember. I don't have the physical book with me. I'm still waiting for it to get here, so I can't really check, and I already returned the ebook to Amazon. It was like a Kindle Unlimited, but there's 5 or 6 stories, like 95 pages long, somewhere along those lines. But there are little short stories, and what I loved about this, and I talk about this in my December wrap-up, which is when I think I read the book, is that they're all so different that you can read all the stories back to back and they won't get muddled together. And plus her writing was just so I can't get over her writing. I know I keep saying that, but I can't get over her writing. Like I said, I am planning to read more from her in February, so I'm super excited, but she is definitely an author not to sleep on. Next, let's talk about The Cipher by Kathy Koja. This is actually a book that we received in one of our Nightworms boxes. I think it was January 2019 or at some time. I have a reading blog with this book in it, so I'll leave it right here, but I just found this so dark. Here we are following a group of friends, two best friends. You have the feeling that he's in love with her, but she's just like stringing him along. She's evil. She's just mean. I don't like her. Nakota is just like the worst. But Nicholas, which is the other friend, where he lives, there's like this utility closet, and they notice one day this black hole in the corner there, and they both become mesmerized. Nakota more than Nicholas, but it's just a story of them trying to figure out what this black hole is. It's crazy. I feel like this was like an acidy fever dream. If you can combine all of that, that's what this was. It was so weird at times. I didn't know what I was reading, but it was just so dark and so good. If you're just looking for one of these, like, this was very taxing on my emotions. You know how just some books, they're like so dark that they tax your emotions? That was this, but I definitely enjoyed it. It's very unique. It has a very unique take. It's not the most perfect book that you'll find, but it's good enough that I wanted to talk about it, because I don't see a lot of people talking about this book, and it's very out there and different and weird. Another author that I want to read more of, and I think she has another book out. I think this was her debut book, but it's another one that can write a story, boy, and that is Laurel Hightower with Whispers in the Dark. I talked about this in my favorites of 2020, but I can't remember right now, but I think I did. This novel was amazing. If I did talk about it in my favorites of 2020 and I'm here talking about it again, I apologize. I don't remember. I think I did. Basically here we are following a SWAT team member, which is Rose, and she is called one day to a hostage situation where there's a dad holding hostage his wife and his two kids, and they're trying to get the kids back. They believe he has killed the wife, but they're trying to get the kids, and she is forced to shoot him. Later on she finds out that he was actually her half-brother, and there are many secrets that she needs to uncover. She's a single mom. She has this beautiful little boy, and there's just some secrets and some evil things lurking around that she must defeat or overcome. I talk about strong female characters a lot, and I think it's just, you have to point it out, especially in a video like this where we're talking about women that write horror. Strong female, kick-ass female protagonists. I feel like it's one of my favorite things to read in a book. Rose McFarlane did not disappoint. Laurel Hightower really wrote this character so well and fleshed out, and the world was so amazing. There's a scene here where she has to go back to this house and beat this thing, and just the scenery and the imagery and the atmosphere was on point. If you haven't read Whispers in the Dark, I highly, highly, highly recommend. And then last but definitely not least, I want to talk about Anya Alborn. I've read about 3 of her books. I love her writing, but she's a little bit hit or miss for me. But one book that truly knocked my socks off was Brother. This was phenomenal. Here we're following a family that lives in this farmhouse. You know how the story goes from there. But we are following this family. But Michael, which is one of the brothers, this is the Morrow family, and they're just, you know, they live in the farmhouse, they live their own lives, but Michael just never feels like he's part of the family. There's something different. He feels different than all of them, but he really wants to be liked, and he wants to be part of the family. They have a couple of little secrets, and one of them starts uncovering themselves as Michael meets this girl Alicia, and things, and that meeting right there just changes his life, and things start unraveling little by little, and secrets start coming out. This was brilliant. I sobbed at the end, like ugly cried. It was so emotional. We also follow Rebel, which is another one of the brothers, and he just treats Michael so bad. You feel just so bad for Michael, as Michael is trying to fit in, and then his brother Rebel is just always like tearing him down. So it's just a story of Michael trying to find himself, trying to unravel secrets, and it was just brilliantly written. I think this is one of her best works. I still have a couple more books to read from her, but this one has to be my favorite. And one thing in common that all of these books have is her writing. She really knows how to tell a story as well. Her writing just flows easily. This one is just extra twisted, so I love this one so much more. So that's it, you guys. That is everything for this video. I had such a fun time. I'm sure there are a lot more other horror female authors books out there. I do have a large stack to get through in February. Let me know if you will be reading any women written horror for February. Let me know if I have sparked an interest in you with any of these books. And if you have read any of these books, let me know in the comment sections down below your thoughts, if you liked them or not. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!